Okay, we're recording.
Hey, you're coming across a little quiet for me, Jim.
Okay, I'll try to talk more into the microphone. Hopefully
Hi
that'll.
guys.
Hi.
Hey, Rich, how are you?
Hi, Rich.
Hi guys. Very well, thanks. Newbie to Rchain really when it comes to digging into the detail, but I've got the background to make it accessible, and Jim's been very helpful, I suspect, as always. I'm probably here as an observer today, but nice to meet you all.
Are you a developer?
I am, yes. I actually did a maths degree, so I have some background in the maths behind Rchain, and totally think this is the way IT should have been going from the 90s and before. So very enthused by the project. I am a developer, solid functional SQL data warehouse developer now, but I did start off IBM's JVM and struggled with C++, and now I moved away from it. So very keen. I think things are accessible. Very keen to get more involved, but probably need to go and look at the papers and go back to where you guys were 2 or 3 years ago. But thank you for the warm welcome.
Cool. Well, yeah, welcome. And so I want to just see what you guys are expecting or what you need, how I can support you as you're building and working on Rchain and what you guys have in mind. Hey, Kelly.
Hey there.
I think for me, I'm literally just going to only really participate in the basic sessions. I'll probably be in sessions like this as an observer. But what I have found just through a couple of sessions with Jim is that looking at the code and talking about type constructions and things, even if I haven't got all the theory in the background, it's actually quite useful context. I think I will join some of these sessions, but perhaps for now I'll just let you guys lead and switch off my camera and just listen in the background. Cheers.
All right, cool. Well, I'm certainly not the Rchain expert, so I'm happy to facilitate and help you guys out. But I think I leave that hard lifting up to Jim.
Hey, Jim, you're on mute. I can see you talking.
Hopefully we'll get some other app developers in here. My interest is in community and governance, the liquid democracy, and the social ledger, which is really the ledger of actions that people take together on the chain in terms of the connecting the actions of all the tools and things they use and share. I'm interested in chat applications and such. There's Robot currently has a chat application, and also decentralized authoring. Hoping to find a group. I'd want to put FedWiki on Rchain.
I'm not. What is that? I'm not familiar with that.
FedWiki it comes from Ward Cunningham, the original wiki guy, and it's a federated wiki.
Oh, FedWiki. Okay.
I like to call it a decentralized wiki because it decentralizes, it maximally decentralizing authorship. So, if I want to change something you wrote, okay, I'll basically fork it. And then you have the opportunity then to fork it back. And It's totally equal. Everybody's equal. Everybody owns their own wikis, but you can create a wiki, for as many as you want for as many purposes you want. It's really made for making small books, and you develop a neighborhood of the wikis that you're related to, so that you're searching and access uh, 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 sort of reaches out across the network.
So if I'm a consumer of the information, how do I? So if I do a simple search, like I search Jim Whitescarver, how do I determine? Because I could possibly now get many hits, right, from the federated wikis, right? So how is truth determined?
Really isn't. I mean, when you if we look at wiki, now this is going to be a pretty sparse wiki, but I figured I would try to show something with it here. Okay, so this is wiki.robot.net, and if I let's see, if I don't see the bottom of my screen. Oh, this is owned by Jim Scarver. So now if I sign on here, and this has to be fixed. Right now we just have the Google. I just have the Google sign up here. I don't see it here. Where's it? Oh. So if I so this is green. I'm trying to look where it says what my neighborhood is. Okay, this shows me. It shows me the wikis that I'm connected to. So if I do a search on, let's say, Rchain, I'm not going to get much. It's only going to search the neighborhood. And it didn't find any Rchains. Okay, these different color wikis here are different federated wikis that I'm connected to.
All right.
And, still learning how to use it. It's a totally decentralized way. So if I go to this page here, which is on another wiki, okay, now I can we can see that it's blue, which means that it's not on my wiki. And we can see by the color here, this is green, this is yellow. This isn't. This is a different wiki, and if I hover over this, I'll see that's on start.fed.wiki. And it's funny, I don't see the controls here. Well, I have to learn it.
Yeah.
So can we revisit the purpose of this meeting? And so, because Jim, that was interesting, but it felt off topic from what I understood the purpose of the meeting to be. So I don't know, either Jim or Ned, can you restate the purpose, and then we can perhaps focus on those topics?
Yeah. So I think Jim should do that because I'm here to just kind of see how I could help. And I saw the message in Discord, and so I said, okay, let me see what I could do. I thought this was a gathering of dApp developers who want to perhaps learn more Rolang and discuss their dApps and maybe feature sets, but that was just kind of what I was thinking. Jim?
Yeah, and I think what you were suggesting today was that it would be primarily organizational to make an agenda of what dApp developers need in terms of support and create a schedule for that moving forward. And yeah, we got sidetracked on the FedWiki app, which is basically a file system that has that would be implemented on Rolang. We can start with a more general overview of, I guess, what we want this meeting to be, and how we can get participation of dApp developers, and how we can, and what kind of support we can give them. And let me just put in here into the chat a document where we can work. Which is,
I think I posted that, right? The Colab Peer Learning Working Groups document. Is that the one?
did I miss that?
I might have shared that before you joined.
You're in the document though, that the same link. There's seeing 4 people in it right now.
Okay. I was thinking that we should have a document specifically for this purpose. Cooperation work study. Okay, there's nothing written in here yet, right? Oh, here we go. We got.
I just started putting who attended, but that was at the beginning, and since then, Kelly's joined.
Well, I've got a lot to say on this topic, and if you'll permit me to blabber for a while, I'd be happy to. I was thinking this was a one-time meeting, which is I'm fully engaged for this. I don't know that I would participate in an ongoing thing or not. Depends. And I guess the other thing, just as a to help level set, is I would say when the numbers of dApp developers is small, like 10 right now maybe, then the approach is one way. A year from now, when the number of dApp developers is in the thousands or tens of thousands, right? Then it's a different kind of approach. But right now, I think what's warranted is a fair bit of high touch or contact with each one, because we're going to have completely different needs, perhaps, about depending on what we're working on and where we're struggling, right? I'll have to say that for most applications I can think of that are at the beginning level, Rolang is actually not the struggle. Yeah, Rolang, you have to work through it. It's a little bit challenging, but it's a lot of other things for me that were more of a struggle. And that might be just where I was as a developer. And I'll share some of those, but that's kind of it's hard to do one size fits all when the community is pretty small. So, hey, before I start blabbering, I wondered if I think I've met many people on this call, but anyone else want to provide some introduction before I monopolize the time for a little bit?
Hey, Kelly, you're coming to see what the dApp devs need regarding core platform? Or were you here for?
I am primarily here because I was not clear what the agenda was, and if having someone like me or someone like Chris would be valuable. So I'm doing reconnaissance.
Okay, cool.
Just before you carry on, Ed.
Yeah.
So I, from my perspective, because I've got some of the basic maths background, I'm very keen to become a good Rchain developer in the way that Greg's talked about. Now, it's going to take me time. I've got a day job. It's a few hours a week, but it is accessible. So one thing I'm keen, I've been thinking about this week, and from a personal perspective, if we're talking about 10 people, from my perspective, I'm very keen to really understand the technical architecture behind the implementation of Rchain. I think I can teach myself how the row calculus works, and although it's going to take me a long time, I can probably get good at that. And probably the type checking, acting as formal proofs that Greg mentioned at the Ethereum DevCon, I think I can get my head around that. But I'm very keen to sort of understand how Rchain is interpreted or run, and how the stuff that Kelly's working on fits in. Even though I'm not there yet, I think that's very important to writing good dApps, and I think you need some of the core community to be able to do that. And then secondly, I was kind of thinking, well, what sort of applications do the 10 people here now want to write? And clearly Jim's very, very interested in sort of the security and the decentralized organization. I like the session we had where Joshi had put up some introducing some little games, and I've never studied game theory. I bought a little book, 100 sides, called The Joy of Game Theory, and I think once I've learned Rchain, I'm very keen to get involved in that way and then think about the tokenomics of Rchain. So sorry if I'm going on a bit, but I just wanted to put my 2 pennies worth in there, that understanding and having support in understanding the tech arc, and perhaps a focused area per developer might be a useful bit of input. I'll be quiet now. Thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks for sharing that, Rich. Ed, do you want, unless somebody else wants to, Mom Shulov, and let's see who else we have. Heidi?
Hi, everyone.
Hey.
So I have not a very strong development background. However, I can code in a few languages. I am mainly here to learn and to soak up whatever I can. I don't have any particular ideas for dApps, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
I'm more interested in how things work.
Cool. All right, thank you.
Got it. And Rick or Adi, anything to add?
Nothing really much from me. I'm in a very similar boat to Momslob, just kind of mainly learning. So I spent a lot of time with Jim learning off him.
Cool.
All right. All right, thanks. All right, Ed, so like the floor is yours.
So I'm gonna paste a bunch of stuff. I just thought about this for 5 or so minutes before the call, and just so folks know what I'm working on, I've been working on a web wallet. I'm not a very senior software developer. I've been around software a lot, so this journey has been a lot about me learning a lot of software particulars. The platform that I'm developing in is Scala.js, and there's gRPC involved to talk to the R nodes. I've configured a Envoy proxy to be in between though to handle the HTTP header differences. And then I've got some other technologies, React and Bootstrap and a couple other minor things that are all part of my learning journey. And so frankly, I struggled with a lot of things other than Rchain through that. But I'll talk a bit about the Rchain specific challenges. And I'm happy to say that I'm at a good point in development. I recently incorporated the crypto library for the ED 25519 curve and Blake 2B256 hashes, and that was a big struggle for me. Took several weeks of time for me to work through that. And so look forward to a demo within the next week of a working wallet on a web wallet with Rchain. So I'm really at a happy point after a bit of a struggle, frankly. So here's some of the list, and I got a few more points that just wouldn't all fit into one message. One is just making each other known, who's developing apps and what are they, what platforms, because there may be some opportunity for synergy across or sharing stories. And thanks Jim and Ned for getting us together for some of these. One curious thing is if there's which of these are open source and which are not, because and that's fine. But for those that are open source, it'd be interesting for dApp developers to see how others are solving particular problems. I often look into the core source code to see how it deals with deployment signing and cryptographic or hashing or other things, because I kind of need those examples. And another great resource for seeing how things are done is the work that Dan Conley and Joshi did on Rchain API. I also reference that. They don't have a direct translation all the time because one's in JavaScript, the other one's in Scala that relies on Java libraries, and I can't do that in quite the same way. But they're both very helpful. Like I mentioned, I'm building a browser app, and so had a number of challenges. Like I mentioned, gRPC, had trouble with or challenges with the choices the core team made around crypto libraries. And this isn't just my challenge, this is a challenge that will be for the whole ecosystem, at least in the first release. For browsers, really a much more inclusive choice would have been to use the cryptographic curves that Subtle Crypto supports, which is the browser-based encryption. And I forget what those are. I think they are 256R1 or something. I forget what the curve is there.
256R1.
Yeah, and then there's also a similar requirement on phones. Like I understand that iPhones use R1 as well. So there's pros and cons, and I don't want to revisit all that, but these are choices that have an effect. And so I would have preferred, a more robust conversation as long as a year or so ago on these topics, and we started them, and I didn't feel very, very well heard through that period of time about these issues. Same thing with Ethereum-based things. The Ethereum developers really, I think, a good characterization of who we want to attract to Rchain. And so they're used to a number of things. They're used to the libraries they have, the infrastructure they have. And so we need to be sensitive about that going forward. I had a web wallet working for Ethereum, and if we could have kept with the same cryptographic curve and hash, then I would have been several months ahead. But this decision cost me significant time, and that will be true for other dApp developers also. So I'm not sure there's anything we can do about it now for Mercury, but I just want the team to be aware that that dialogue is important, because there's probably a lot of details that I'm not aware of. A lot of dApp developers are used to having others do things for them, if you will. So in the Ethereum world, MetaMask and Infura are used by the vast majority of dApps. I'm not saying we should repeat that, but we need to be aware of it. And so MetaMask specifically as a signing tool for the dApps that can present the Web3 to MetaMask. And so that makes a very, that helped accelerate that whole ecosystem. And so if we can think about how to respond to that, either by repeating something similar or saying, well, we're not going to do that, and instead we are encouraging a different path. And I don't know that there's a best answer here. Infura is not all good for the ecosystem, but it is very much relied upon. So just wanted to, and I'd love to have those conversations more publicly, about what the Rchain community can do going forward to meet those same type of needs. In other words, to make it easy for a new dApp to be added to the ecosystem. You can think of it that way. I'm still a little bit fuzzy, Kelly, on what wallets the co-op will provide exactly. Is it going to be script only, or which is via command lines, or will there actually be a wallet dApp or command line dApp that the wallet the co-op?
For Mercury, it will only be the command line.
Okay. So that's probably not well understood beyond a few people. Okay, that's clear. And I understand the challenges of getting the other things done. So Rchain education is really essential, important as this goes on. There's some outstanding questions I have about return. This is another Rchain-y thing, is return channels and standard out, standard error. I know that's on Chris and perhaps Kelly's radar of that some work there is needed. It might be more educational work than dev work.
Yeah, we talked about this at the dev retreat last week. In both of those contexts, just making sure that the platform does it well, and then making sure that we're able to communicate clearly how that works.
Yeah, in specifically, I'm really dependent on public names right now, and I'm okay to go to private names, but I just don't want it to be a surprise. So.
When you say private, you mean unforgeable?
I think I mean the same thing. I'm a little ignorant in it. Yes, I think it's the same as unforgeable name.
Okay.
Dan,
could I just? Sorry, Ed. Just chipping in on the educational point. I think from my perspective, that's somewhere where I'd be very keen to get involved down the line. So I read a lot of popular science as well, and I hate most of the books. I loathe analogy. But I think one of the big challenges in a year will be educating, perhaps without being condescending, lesser developers if we want to grow the platform. And that's one of the reasons I'm so keen to learn it properly, because then if you can educate more broadly, that's somewhere I'd very much like to contribute. So just to log that.
So yeah, can I say a couple things? So one, I don't know, has anybody looked at Josh's tutorials? I know there have been some changes. I'm wondering if those tutorials are now out of date and need to be updated. Does anybody have an answer to that?
They are not on our backlog of things to maintain. And I have a developer who recently worked through them and did so successfully.
Oh, okay, great. So that's really great news.
Yeah, he provided some excellent examples and tutorials in the office hours. I hope that we didn't sort of lose him from the community, and I saying that gently, but he did get what I'll say is pissed off on one of the rants around some decisions that the co-op made. So we need to treat our friends carefully, and some of that just requires dialogue, you know. And he's Joshi is a gem. So
Totally agree with you on that. You know, we had plans for some of this other things. If I could just interrupt for 1 second.
go ahead,
You know, back when the solutions group was theoretically going to get funded, we had plans to do some kind of Infura, MetaMask APIs or stuff, right, to help convert over Ethereum users, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I mean, no details, but we knew we had to do something like that. So, and then developer education was also big, you know, and so, you know, I mean, everybody knows, you know, there was no funding for any of this, right? So,
Exactly.
so, but, you know, like I said to Greg last week, I said, you know, if we get this money, we could go back to the drawing board of the solutions group and revive all those plans. If, you know, if there's now funding, I know the attention now, you know, the attention then was split between core platform and portfolio groups and, you know, development, you know, the development community supporting them. You know, now that's been all focused on the core platform, you know.
Exactly, and I think, you know, given the constraints, it was the right choice. But hopefully now with some additional funding for the co-op, there can be, you know, some of these things picked up again. And I would certainly put rolling education up there towards the top end. I think the other concept of reference architectures, if you will, as important, and they don't necessarily need to be very detailed, but if a new developer is coming on the call, you know, clearly for Mercury, they have to deal with gRPC, and so how will they deal with gRPC? And there's some answers for that, but that's an important part of the education, and there's part of the code that they can deal with it in the from the core platform perspective, or from parts of RSong for the acquisition side of RSong. There's examples of how to deal with gRPC in Scala, and then Rchain API. And then there's reference architectures that Jack Mills started. So those are some examples of putting that together and say, these are some reference architectures. So let's see, 9 is just more of a question on how to attract Ethereum developers. We can come back to that if other have ideas. You know, sort of what are the top asks of dApp developers, and just sort of summarize that. You could just say the top 5 or how many. And so mine are, you know, the reference architecture, and how we will embrace additional cryptographic signing, all the way from, you know, the current one, ED 25519, K1 for sort of alternate authentication around current contracts, but you still need 25519 to sign deployments, to, you know, how would we incorporate other factor devices, whether it be a ledger or a YubiKey or some other kinds of crypto that's out there. But that would be on my top 10 ask list. At number 11, there's a lot there in Rchain API that Dan and Joshi put together. A lot of good things. I think getting some more eyeballs around it would be really would help the morale of the groups and the developers, actually, because there's a lot of good stuff in place.
Can I say something about the Rchain API? For what it's worth, I think that's actually going to be critical for onboarding new developers. I think we will improve the pathway and make the pathway a little bit happier for new developers using that tool over what the platform is going to provide natively. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of web developers and Node.js developers out there.
Yeah. So if we could, I mean, I think that's probably the happiest path.
I agree with you. I think this completion, productization of something like Rsign, which was sort of a lightweight MetaMask for purposes of signing and or deploying, would also have the same effect of accelerating. But yes, I agree with you, Kelly. However, I don't believe Dan or Jossie or anyone has signed up to productize and support Rchain API. So there's an opportunity there for someone.
Yeah, for sure. Although I think we still have some enough downtime on that. I could be wrong. I hope I'm not.
Yeah, well, time and then a commitment to ongoing productization support are something a little different. For support, you have to be willing to be on call, essentially.
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, Dan is awesome. Kelly, I want to encourage you and others from the dev team to take as much time as you need on the Wednesday calls, and a little bit of deeper would be appreciated by me. I read the links you send out and so forth, but and I'm not always on the Wednesday calls live, but I do appreciate your updates all the time, and it's the most valuable part of the call to me every week. So thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, and noted.
Okay, and then I mentioned the reference architectures. Truffle's an interesting development tool in Ethereum. I've just learned a little bit about it, but one of the things that Truffle does, in addition to being a development environment, there's a library, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, that handles some of the caching that a client needs. And so even if that can't affect what we can get done in the near term, I think it's important that Ned, you and perhaps Kelly and Chris and others as available sort of tune into what the state of the art of Ethereum is, and be inspired to hopefully others will develop similar things.
Yeah, there was again, these were initiatives that I had actually met with a company that was doing a enterprise truffles, template, kind of thing, and they were really excited about Rchain.
Yeah.
And and then stuff happened. So
what's interesting is I don't know if it's the majority or many of the key members of the Truffle team are in Seattle, which is I was delighted to learn. More in Seattle is better, of course.
No, it was a pretty cool product. So I need to kind of go back and see where their head is at and what they've done over the last couple months.
Yeah, and then there's the notion of SDKs, which are sort of beyond the API. An SDK includes perhaps some library standard contract examples that run, and that kind of thing. And so eventually a sort of a packaging of a getting started kit would be very valuable. And I kind of mentioned the other things about Ethereum, MetaMask, etc. And then there's an area of what I'll call sort of the things that are sit right above the platform that are really important for the ecosystem to have. Ideally, Pythia Reflective Ventures or others would be encouraging these kinds of things, but they're at this sort of middle ground between what can become a profitable company and what is sort of an enabler for a lot of other things like profitable companies. And wallets, identity, even data wallets, and then maybe RCAT is sort of related. Exchanges and explorers is kind of in this middle ground. And so anything that co-op can do to encourage productization in these areas would help the whole ecosystem substantially. I'd be interested in learning more about RCAT, actually. I know very little about RCAT. I've heard it talked about. I don't know if it's the same thing as a part of our song. Is there an RCAT repo? What are the plans? So that would be interesting to learn about. So that's my spiel. Thanks for listening.
I mean, RCAT, I think the best way to think of RCAT, it's the asset management framework that our song was built on.
Yeah.
And so so now like we're working on our song, the artist intake piece, right?
Yep.
And that to make use of those assets. And there's definitely work that has to be done to turn it into. And I like what you were saying about tools and templates to get people started. And so my hope is as we move forward with our song, the mindset is to flesh out and really make RCAT accessible to the average person, right? And and that's what I think Kayvon's vision was when he created it inside of Kubernetes, one-touch deployment across any cloud service.
Yeah.
And then smart contracts. Now we haven't looked at it from that perspective with the artist intake piece. Actually, most of that actually has been focused on kind of like the React, JavaScript, Node.js front end. And I think you brought that up before. Like development of dApps is going to be probably 90% of that, and then 10% of the internal wiring to have the dApps work on the blockchain, right? So we definitely need to move in that direction, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. But yeah, just removing any kind of confusion that the community may have or the developers may have about these kind of either assumptions or just things like the question about the wallets I asked you, Kelly, is the what RCAT and our song, are they products or are they samples or we don't know yet, and this kind of clarity of even directionally is helpful. Cool.
So
Thank you.
go on.
Thank you so much, Ed. It's really glad that you prepared this, which the rest of us didn't get around to. But,
Sure thing, Jim. Yeah.
I did create a document for the purpose of this meeting, and I put the link in the chat and in the notes there. I copied in Ed's points.
Ed, sorry, Ed, are you okay if I copy your list into this document?
It's in the document.
Yeah.
It's in the document.
Oh, that's interesting. It didn't update in mine. Okay, cool.
Well, no, you have to click on the link that I just put in the chat. Okay, or the link in the log to the document.
Okay.
The Rchain dApp developer work study document.
I don't see a link to that in the chat, Jim. Can you post it again, please?
Oh, am I sending privately?
Oh, I see what you're talking about, Jim. You're talking about the link under the today's date. Okay.
And I joined late, so.
Right, but Jim, I just refreshed the doc and I don't see the list in there.
It's under today's date, the second link.
And it's now in the chat to everyone. I sent it privately before accidentally.
Yep. Well done.
Okay. All right. So it sounds like folks want these to be somewhat technical, right? And do deep dives into programming. Is that correct?
But for me, yes, and I think it chimed with what Ed said. Obviously, he's at a somewhat more advanced level than I am currently. But yes, I think that's key. That the core community really understands how it's built and put together, and that things like RCAT, which I assumed would be part of the technical arc, and that was the direction. But I take Ed's point that that's not crystal clear yet. But certainly as that emerges, I think understanding what all the different components are, where Joshy's moved off to Substrate and what that is, the wider ecosystem. But yeah, deep dive, it would be great.
Yeah, I think we're also identifying things like it's clear we need some work studies on the Rchain API, and maybe this group would be more identifying common needs of people and arranging work studies in areas of common need. I don't know, or maybe having particular topics that we cover, and we get someone to guide on a particular topic. That seems like a good way to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, just an idea is just to do if this is going to be a repeating meeting, just do a quick round the room, and then, in advance you would know a particular topic to deep dive on. So let's say for next week, you do a quick status around the room of what's on people's minds, what they've been working on, or whatever, what concerns they may have. And then you will have ahead of time picked a topic like Rchain API or Rlang education or some other particular topic.
I actually really like that. So first thing we could do is go around and what have people been working on. I'm just writing this down, and then
write it in the document.
I'm not good at typing as the meeting is going on. I'm happy to put them in afterwards.
Yeah,
I do much better with a pencil or a pen. Sorry. And then the next thing would be the topic of the week, or however often we meet. Should we start the next meeting and talk about the Rchain API? And then the question is, who can do that?
Recommend inviting Dan to give a walkthrough of the Rchain API.
Okay, now Dan is not available during the week, or is he?
I think that's typically true, yeah. Like Saturday mornings he kind of carved out, but yeah,
Chris might be able to.
That'd be cool. Yeah.
Okay, I could check with Chris and see. Yeah, I'm not available on the weekend, so that wouldn't work for me. But.
So Joshy's another option, perhaps.
Yeah, just the last time I reached out to Joshy, it was kind of a thumbs down. So
okay.
I don't know. I don't want to get into his own reasons, but the event he needs to change has not happened. So
yeah, and now he's working full time.
Yes,
for Parity.
Right.
And we're running. But he still is running his Rlang hours on Thursdays right after the node testing.
Oh, he is?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that. So that's a really great resource for people.
Absolutely.
If you haven't been to Joshy's office hours on Thursday for Rlang discussions, and you want to become a...
But it has been Rchain related. I mean, we've been working with Substrate, but we've been working with it at different hours. Substrate is the meta chain behind Polkadot, Parity.
Oh, okay. So it's not Rlang office hours.
Yeah, well, yes, it has been. No, the Substrate work we've been doing on other hours.
Okay. Yeah, so any dApp, anybody who wants to learn Rlang code, I recommend showing up at Joshy's Rlang office hours on Thursday morning after node testing.
Well, one of the things they've been doing is also they've been implementing pi calculus and row calculus in Haskell and in JavaScript. So Golang tends to be a little theoretical, more theoretical than practical, although they do some practical stuff. And it's usually open, it opens the floor to people to bring up whatever they want to bring up.
All right. So we just have a couple minutes left. Is there anything else that anybody wants to bring up?
One thing I might add is, I'm a database developer. I've never really got continuous integration up and running Microsoft sides on the noddy side of things, and so things like Jira boards, and I've used those. But when it comes to region of it for pulling and pushing and things like that, but I'd kind of have a request of sort of like an
Hey, Rich, you're breaking up a
introduction
little
to
bit.
the. Oh, I apologise. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Great. Sorry. I'll try and be more concise, but I was thinking aloud. Just how to use GitHub, where the source code is for Rchain, the kind of the very basics. Maybe a session on that. If not now, I'm sure I can struggle through and teach myself if I had to. That would be much appreciated. But certainly down the line, I think if you want to grow the community, there'll be developers out there desperate to get away from the corporate world like me, and they won't have these sort of basics. So, just throwing it out there as a possible topic in the next few weeks. And if not, then maybe part of the educational materials that ship as standard as we grow bigger.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And I feel your pain as a database person with trying to use a repo like GitHub. It's not easy, although there are very expensive tools out there that kind of do it, but they're not cheap.
We could do that. We have a fair amount of onboarding content related to Git workflow and developer best practices.
Fantastic. If you could if you could drop me any links, Kelly, that would be
Let me
great.
do that just now.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. I'll go on mute now. Cheers, guys.
If you could
I
drop,
can also help you with that.
if you could drop some links in the document, that would be great.
Yeah, give me just a second. It's been a long time since we got to onboard someone.
While Kelly is doing that, Momchilov, you said you had some info where you could help somebody with that as well?
I have Git experience, yeah. I'm used to using Git. But the onboarding would be useful for me as well.
Okay.
Great, thanks. Thank you, Momchilov.
All right, so we'll meet again next week, and we will try to enlist. I'll reach out to Chris, see if he can do an Rchain API walkthrough. Anything else before we close for the day?
I will, I'm just dropping the link here in this chat, and then I'm also adding it to the document. This is a good place to get started, and I'll put some other links in the doc as well.
Cool. Hey, Jim, where do you post the recording, and can you put the links from the chat in that? Is it up on OneDrive or a Google Drive or something?
Well, I could. Usually, I post them on YouTube. In the we have a cooperatively managed YouTube channel for the CoLab.
All right, that's cool. But we can't put the. can you put the links that are in the chat window up into there?
I can put the chat in the document.
Okay, cool. Great. Thank you, Kelly.
Sure.
Thanks, everyone. Hopefully we can spark some more interest in or get more people involved in app development if we can provide a path to onboarding them.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is a good start. Thanks, Ed, for all of your stuff, and
You're welcome.
everyone for their contributions. Thank
Yeah,
you.
absolutely. Yeah, thank you, everybody, and I will see you all next week.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.